Hey everyone, hopefully you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. I'm looking through the comment section, like to answer some of your questions, and I'm basically going to describe and go through a scenario, a potential scenario. So it says for future subscriber questions video, Andy, I've heard base metals follow the precious metals in a commodities bull market. I know you think energy leads. What should be on our radar for the back half of the bull? Interested to see how you think this plays out once uranium and the precious metals have made their runs. And I don't honestly, a lot of this stuff a lot of them haven't even done their major runs yet. We had this initial kind of surge higher, and you can see it in the commodity to stock ratio and how low we are. We're just coming off the bottom, starting to move on up. And again, these things don't go in straight lines. They don't just go straight up. They cycle back and forth. You have pullbacks. And if you've been on the channel for a while, I've been very upfront and open that these things are going to go and be volatile and come back and forth. And what you do is you hold on to it. You hold on, you buy the cheap assets. If they get cheaper, I continue to cost average in. That is my strategy. And that strategy is going to work for the duration of the bull market. The bull market, in my opinion, is going to be about as long as the real estate expansion phase will be. That could be 5 to 10 years. The commodity to stock ratio will tell us our buy and sell signals. It is throwing a buy signal, and it's never been this cheap for over 100 years. So the valuations are definitely to the downside for the majority of the companies that we're buying. Now, some of these companies have moved off of incredibly low bottoms, and they look like they're getting expensive to most people, but they are still cheap in relationship to history because the gold to oil ratio, the copper to gold ratio, all these ratios are still incredibly cheap. There's no reason to be selling these. There should be reason to be buying some of these. And I would be looking for the laggards, ones that haven't broken and really taken huge runs yet. And you're probably going to still find some deals. Something like a Comstock Resources, a CRK, or a Northern Oil and Gas, NOG. And do the research for yourself. This is not advice. This is just my financial opinion. These are the companies that I'm buying. And I'm going to play through a scenario here. And investing is much like playing chess. Playing chess, you have to have a strategy. You come in and you have to foresee things happening before they happen. We don't want to be in reaction mode. We want to be thinking this through and trying to figure out how things are going to play out. And I've done this with some of the companies. It's basically like playing chess and getting in a checkmate scenario. I've done an entire video on it. But I'm going to give you a scenario that I've been playing through my head over the past 6 months because I knew that I knew an energy crisis was going to happen. I knew that there was going to be a problem in oil because we have underinvestment in oil. And I knew that the demand for natural gas has been ramping up quite substantially. If you've been on the channel, you know I'm a natural gas bull. I say it all the time. Oil and natural gas. We have not been feeding money into coal, natural gas, and oil. They're basically investment starved. When you starve those in investment, the natural tendency for these oil fields is to decline. They don't just run and run flat, they go down. In the short term to medium term, we are ramping up demand, and supply is going to fall. That is going to create an energy crisis. And that's why you hear a lot of people talk about an energy crisis now. And what's happening is investments stop going to coal. We have a coal shortage. And you're starting to hear stories on a coal shortage. Then you're starting to hear shortages in natural gas. And you're starting to see natural gas in Asia rocket higher. You're starting to seeing it in Europe rocket higher. And then you're starting to see the move affect United States. And ours is starting to rocket higher. And we also have the hurricane that basically amplified all these moves. So it's going to spill over into everything. All energy is going to cost more, in my opinion, over the next commodity bull market that we have. However long that's going to be, it's going to cost more during that entire time frame. Now, what impact does that have on investments, and who's going to gain and who's going to hurt? And how am I going to play it? Obviously, you can play this stuff straight up. You can say, I'm going to buy oil companies and natural gas companies, which are kind of one of the same. You can buy coal. You can buy those things. And some of them, they've had pretty good runs. Now, what I'm doing now is I'm shifting my preference to things that I think will be used in the future to solve the problems that we have today. What are our problems? Energy is our problem. How are these governments, which they think they have all the power, not my opinion, guys, but they think they have the power to solve this. They want problem solution. Where are they going to dump a bunch of money? They're probably going to dump it in renewables. Now, the renewables are not going to make that much money because they are a consumer of commodities. They consume. And I was looking at it like, man, they're going to be making some money, but what if they don't? Okay, I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate, because I had some long positions on solar and swapped. And what did I swap into? And I'll go over what I swapped into. But I've been thinking long and hard. Well, not really long and hard. I thought about this for a little bit. If energy gets more expensive, what solutions are they going to put in place? If people are going to start dumping money into a solution, if it's going to be electricity driven, that means that they're going to have to cross the road of the copper commodity. So when I look at this, I don't think there's any sort of way that you can avoid copper not going massively higher. Copper has to go higher. It has to. Because if they try to implement anything with electricity, it's going to use a lot of copper. Electric vehicles use copper. If you spread out a whole bunch of renewables everywhere, you're going to have to run copper lines to all this stuff. There's copper in those, I think they're armatures or whatever inside those things, the electric motors and magnets. You've got copper all over the place. We have to upgrade the grid. Copper. It's copper. You're building new homes. Copper. Everything that I can think of leads to copper if you try to solve it outside of producing more of the fossil fuels. So I'm in the fossil fuels because that's where the problem is. Then I'm loading up in copper, and the way to play it, I think, is to be in a royalty company. So I keep going back to Nova Royalty, and I'm not trying to sell this to anyone. Do your own research. They do not have any producing royalties, not at the moment. But they are acquiring royalties on projects that are going to be big projects, and their counterparties are the big mining companies, which is the exact counterparties that I want in a royalty company. So I've been adding into Nova Royalty consistently, and it's down right now. So I'm adding in, and this is going to be a long-term play. This is greater than a 5 to 10 year play. I'm not playing this for the short-term little movements. I'm playing it for the big move that's coming. Copper, we don't have enough copper to do what they want to do. We don't have enough copper to fulfill all of the electric vehicles, to fulfill all of the renewables that we want to put in, and all the connections that we have to make. So if we have an energy crisis, which we're basically in right now, and they try to solve it through renewable means and electric vehicles and all these things, they have to cross the copper commodity to get there. I don't think we have enough copper to do it. I think prices are going to spike. They're going to spike like heck. They're just not spiking yet, and people aren't interested in it because it's not spiking yet. It's not like most people, their attention span is nothing, and they see something shiny go by and they say, "Ooh, shiny," and then they go follow it. And that's basically with prices. Oh, look, the prices are going up. Let's go run that way. Oh, this price is going up. Let's go run that way. So what I'm doing is I'm literally buying copper, Nova royalties. What I'm doing is I'm buying that and diversifying into it for the copper run that's coming up. We are also short nickel, and they have nickel. So nickel and copper are the two areas. If we're going to try to solve this with battery electric vehicles, we're going to be short nickel and we're going to be short copper. And I think that's a good one, in my opinion, to look into, because they're buying everything when it's down. I mean, it's not down, but we are still low. They're acquiring royalties. And that's what I'm looking for. And it's okay if it doesn't produce now, because that just means they're getting a better deal on the royalty itself. We need copper to stay down for me to get more deals and more money into some of these royalty companies. Because if we try to cross that copper commodity and go into renewables and electric vehicles in the way that they want to do it, we don't have the projects online yet to basically fulfill all of that demand. So the supply just isn't there. And I don't think it's going to be there for 7 to 10 years, somewhere in that range. I mean, there's some projects coming on. It's the ones that Nova is getting the royalties on. I mean, that's perfect. So I think that's one play that people aren't looking at that's still cheap. So that's something that I'm looking at, is that copper nickel play of that. And Forum Energy Metals is another very small exploration play that's got some nickel. I think it's nickel up there, that Nova actually has a royalty on. It's with Rio Tinto. So it's Rio Tinto, Forum Energy Metals, and Nova has the royalty on it. So that's kind of the threesome there that is circular there, that I actually own all those companies. But I think that is one that is to look at. And some of these copper companies might be pretty good as well, some of these big copper companies, because copper is going to go much, much higher if we try to solve the energy crisis with a renewable path. And again, I'm obviously playing oil, natural gas, not so much coal. And coal has been very surprising. I didn't think it would go up that much, but you know what? I was wrong on coal, for sure. But natural gas, I was right on that one. It's going to go way higher. And oil as well. Oil's breaking out of its big pattern. I think it's going to go a lot higher. So look for the laggards. The laggards are the companies that are still down. They're trying to break these big patterns, like Northern Oil and Gas, like CPG, Cardinal Energy is another one. I think Crew Energy is even cheap. Now, there's another play that I'm playing it with, and it's Reconnaissance Energy Africa, RECAF. Again, I am not sponsored by any of these people. I have nothing with it, but they've been hit by short sellers. I think there's fake news out on it. I am in belief that they are being honest, and I do think that they have a massive oil field. They've drilled 2 wells. They've hit on both of them. They're doing 2D seismic, and when they're going to be done at the end of October with that. They're probably going to release some results, and then they're going to drill a couple more wells to ensure that this massive oil field is there. Now, I'm just going to paint a picture. If we're in an energy crisis and we've got oil rocketing higher and natural gas and all this stuff, and they have a massive oil and natural gas field, one of the major fields that is left in the world, what do you think the value of that is going to be? And right now it's sold off. It went all the way up to about $11.50, something like that. It's sold off to about $5. And it's sitting there. Buyers equal to sellers. It's just kind of sitting there. What do you think the worth of that thing is if they have a massive find? A massive find. They've already hit oil there. We know it's there. And they did it on the first 2 wells they drilled, which is there's got to be a lot there if they did it on the first 2 holes and didn't put a dry hole or anything. If that's there and it's a massive find, and they've already hit something, and it's one of the last big finds, and we're in an energy crisis, what is that worth? Probably a lot. So I've got some money in there. I'm not telling you guys, do your own research. Research it yourself. It's RECAF is the ticker symbol, Reconnaissance Energy Africa. You can do your own research. But if the field is that big, if it's as big as they're kind of estimating, and they hit 2 wells off the beginning there, I'm in it. So I'm in it. I'm going to hold on to this thing. Another one that I'm kind of doing that with is baseload energy in uranium. And I want to talk a little bit about uranium. If we've got this energy crisis, I want to have what's last of the big oil fields that people are trying to explore for. I mean, that's going to be invaluable. Same with natural gas. I want some energy companies that I own straight up that are producing, which I have, some high debt ones because the debt's going to be inflated away through the oil price. Makes sense. I've talked about that before. And I've got copper because if they try to solve this energy problem with renewables, they have to cross the copper path. And if they cross the copper path in the demand that they want, it's going to create massive shortages, which the price of that's going to rocket. So I chose a royalty company to limit my input costs and maximize my volume versus price. That is what the value of that royalty would be. And it's accumulating all the royalties that are out there in nickel and copper of the big boy stuff. So that's, I think, a smart play. Now, if we try solving it and we run into copper shortages or we want to do something that else is clean, we're going to go to nuclear, I think. Modular reactors, we can plop them down in a very small area and run one line to it to preserve copper. And if that is also another play, which I think is going to happen, is we run more nuclear. Because one, it's reliable. We can have baseload power. We don't have to store electricity. We can store uranium. And uranium you can store because it's a very energy-dense metal. It's very easy to store. You don't need much of it in terms of physical space. So I think that could be a potential solution to an energy crisis problem as well worldwide. So I think that uranium is vastly undervalued given the conditions that we could potentially be in the future for energy. It's also clean and it can produce the energy in electricity format is what we want, carbon free. So I think that uranium is another really good play, and especially at the valuations it's at today. So when you look at this energy crisis as a whole, it's like you want to play all of those facets. It's like play the copper play the uranium play if they go that route, and I don't see how they couldn't. It's also a base. It's base energy, and you can only put in about 70% of renewables. 30% has to be from base load power, and I think uranium is going to have to cover that gap if they want to do a carbon free base load power energy source. Natural gas is the transition fuel between all this. And we have to develop some sort of way to store electricity. We haven't done that yet. So the problem's going to persist for a good long time. And if we're going to solve this, I think we're going to have to cover over or cross over the copper commodity, which is already going to be in shortage. I mean, we're going to have shortages there. And silver would also be another commodity that you could look into because that's all the electrical connections. So I think all of these metals, copper, silver, especially, are going to be good. And if we go the hydrogen route, platinum's the spot. And really what I'm describing is my investment strategy. It's platinum, silver, copper, and then all the energies. I mean, that's basically all I'm in for this commodity play. So it's based off of this energy. It's basically getting into a checkmate scenario based off of energy. If you guys like this content, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and thank you for listening. This is Finding Value.